The MYFORD University Podcast, Episode 23. We're going to talk about the OODA loop today. Welcome to the MYFORD University Podcast. It's a podcast for people who want real-world business skills without the tuition, theory bloat, and pointless buzzwords. Today's episode is all about making decisions faster and smarter, even when the world around you is chaotic, uncertain, and moving fast. We're diving deep into a framework called the OODA loop. That's OODA, one of the most powerful and underused tools in the modern decision maker's arsenal. By the way, this is a great tool to use in conjunction with VUCA, which we covered in the last episode. Highly recommend you check that one out. MyFordUniversity.com. You can get the podcast. It's free. You can go to the newsletter. That's free. Or you can read the full-blown article in the blog. All right, so let's break it down. What the hell is the OODA loop? It's not a cereal, even though it sounds like cereal. The OODA loop is a 4-step decision-making model, and it goes like this: observe, orient, decide, act. Now, the really cool part about this is it was originally developed by a U.S. Air Force colonel and fighter pilot named John Boyd. This framework wasn't created for business plans or executive meetings. It was built for life or death decisions in mid-air combat. However, it has some really good applications in the business world. All right, the premise. Whoever can make decisions faster based on a more accurate interpretation of what's happening wins. And when you're in life and death, you need to do it fast. Always think back to Maverick. The Top Gun sequel. Don't think, do. Okay. So it was built for dogfighting. It's been adopted by military leaders. Obviously, it's got, its implications there. It was built and adopted, it wasn't built for, but it was adopted by startup founders. It was also adopted by strategic consultants. Top performing salespeople. I know it sounds like a stretch, but when you think about it, they have to kind of think on their feet, right? And any business pro that's trying to make moves in a VUCA world. That's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We just covered that one, remember? In other words, it was made and built and adopted and should be adopted by you. All right. So why does the OODA loop matter more than ever now? The days of long planning cycles and perfect data are over. I mentioned this when I did the VUCA one. Your grandfather had plenty of time to think and assess and analyze. Things move slowly, but now things move not in years, but in months, and in sometimes even less than that. So it's a very powerful tool to make quick decisions on the fly. Again, you're not going to have perfect information, as we discussed in VUCA, but you've got to make decisions. Sometimes it's life or death. That's where this originally came from. In business, there's a way to die in business, believe me. All right. So here's what the real world really looks like now. Again, we're not in a static environment. We're in a highly dynamic one. Here are some examples. Customers will change their minds mid-launch. They'll tell you what they want, and then suddenly their needs or wants change. This is a big part of why the Agile methodology came about, because they want to do quick releases and iterate and test so that they don't spend 2 years developing a piece of software, for example, and then find out that it's not right for the particular situation. But if they were doing quick little releases, they can grow and pivot and change and still come up with something that's workable. And this is a big model that is used today. Why do you think there's constantly new releases and updates? Hell, just look at your iPhone, for example. All right. Competitors will release updates overnight. I was just kind of getting into that. Also, tech platforms shift their algorithms monthly, some more so. Global markets react instantly. We are not living in a slow situation. It can happen in seconds, sometimes less. So if you're still relying on slow-moving decision models or waiting for something to line up before you make a move, you're done. You're cooked. Put a fork in it, right? So the OODA loop is different. It's built for speed, clarity, and adaptability. It helps you see clearly, think critically, decide quickly, act decisively, and learn faster than your competition. And it's a loop. It's a constantly repeating process. Constantly. Think about how it was developed. Dogfighting. Until they're neutralized, you constantly have to make new decisions based on all the new information. So let's walk through the 4 steps, shall we? All right. Step 1, observe. This is your data intake phase. You're basically looking at the situation, and you cannot sit there and dilly-dally and dwell. You need to gather as much information as you can, as quickly as you can. Effectively, you're gathering raw signals of what is going on, what's changed, what's new, what's off in this situation. This includes customer behavior. We're talking business now. Market movements, internal metrics, competitor activity, team dynamics. But here's the trick. Don't get lost in data overload. Again, don't get into analysis paralysis. We've talked about that one several times before. And you don't want to fall into tunnel vision where you only see what you expect to see. Sometimes things change dramatically. The goal isn't to collect everything, it's to notice what matters most right now. You have to ask yourself, what am I seeing? Not just, what do I want to see? Okay? Step 2, orient. This is where most people blow it. Orientation is how you interpret what you've observed. It's influenced by a number of factors: your background, your experience, your beliefs, your biases, your habits, even culture. You could observe the same thing as someone else and come to a completely different conclusion because of how you're oriented. This is where you need to be brutally honest with yourself. Remember, I constantly say intellectual honesty, especially with yourself. You don't want to deceive yourself. So you want to ask some questions to help you with this. What am I assuming that might not be true? You don't want confirmation bias, right? What mental models am I applying here? What information or perspective am I missing? I told you, I've many a time, I will sometimes end a meeting and say, is there anything I should be asking that I haven't asked? Because I don't know what I don't know sometimes. But I have the intellectual curiosity, the intellectual honesty, and the courage to say, please guide me and enlighten me, because I don't want to make a short-sighted decision. So always ask what's missing. Here's a pro tip. Talk to people outside of your bubble. Run your logic by someone who doesn't think like you. You don't want a bunch of yes men. You don't want a bunch of sycophants. You want someone who will sometimes play devil's advocate for you, even if they agree with you, but be able to do that. So this isn't about finding the answer. It's about shaping how you think before you choose. Okay, and speaking of choosing, step 3, decide. It's time to pick a direction. Not the perfect one, not the guaranteed one, just the best one based on what you've seen and how you've interpreted it. Okay? You can always refine later. You got to get moving. You got to get momentum. You can adjust, you can pivot, but you got to get rolling. Good decisions made quickly beat perfect decisions that are made too late. In high-speed environments, the cost of inaction is often higher than the cost of being slightly wrong. So make a call and move forward. Step 4, you want to act. This is where the rubber really meets the road. You've chosen a direction. Now you need to take action. Oh man, this is where people sometimes get bogged down. But here's the key. Build in feedback loops. Remember, this is called the OODA loop. Okay? Constantly reassessing. You're like a computer that's constantly recalculating. That's another way to think of this. Because after you act, you're going to start the loop all over again. Your action may cause your opponent to make a different action, and then you may have to do a whole new approach and go through the loop again and it's like a game of chess. Your next move is sometimes based on their move, and vice versa. Hopefully you can think a few moves ahead of them and have a strategy to beat them, but that's effectively the concept here. You'll observe how your action is performed, you'll reorient, you'll make a new decision, and you'll act again. Every loop makes you faster and sharper. It's not a one-time decision. It's an operating system. Again, it is a loop. Okay, here's the thing about the loop. The faster you can do it, the better. Loop speed is equal to a competitive advantage. If you're slow, you're going to have your lunch eaten. So the faster you can move through the loop with a degree of accuracy, the harder it is for anyone to compete with you. That was Boyd's whole point. Remember, the Air Force pilot that came up with this. That's why this works. If your OODA loop is tighter than your competitors, you win. They're still gathering data while you're already launched and adjusted. They're still debating in meetings why you've iterated twice. They're guessing. You're learning. That's the power of the loop. You got to zig while they're zagging. You got to get them be off balance, not you. You need to constantly be moving forward towards your goals and objectives. All right, let's do a real world example. Let's say you run a small consulting business. Leads are down, your last promo fell flat, and you're starting to panic. So here's what you do. You observe. Hey, social traffic dropped. Your last few posts underperformed. You hear a past client say your messaging feels generic. So you orient. You realize your niche isn't tight enough anymore. Your pitch is too broad. You've been trying to appeal to everyone. So you decide you're going to focus on serving one audience, for example, tech leaders in transition. You're going to act. You're going to update your website. You're going to tighten your message. You're going to run a 7-day email sequence targeted towards that group. Then what? Well, it's a loop. You observe again. How did the audience respond? What works? What doesn't? Then you loop again. It's not magic. It's movement. It's momentum. Remember, it's better to take an action than no action at all, right? So here's some final takeaways. The OODA loop is not just a 4-step model. It's a mindset. And as I mentioned before, it goes really well when you use it with VUCA. Okay? You want to stay situationally aware. You constantly want to reframe and reorient. You want to make fast, confident choices. You want to act decisively. Then you want to learn, adapt, and repeat the process. That's how you outthink, outmaneuver, and outperform people who are still stuck waiting for the stars to align. Action beats inaction every day of the week if it's properly focused. Okay? Here's some next steps for you. Try to find a problem, something you're stuck on. Walk through each step, observe, orient, decide, act, and then repeat. Try it out. Once you start using it, it'll become second nature, and you'll start to do it almost subconsciously, and you'll make better decisions. I would also recommend you check out that VUCA article. Again, it's on MYFORDuniversity.com. You can read the short form newsletter, which is free. You can read the long form blog. You can look at the podcast, and you'll also be able to see the YouTube video. So you decide what works for you, and I would definitely look at VUCA in conjunction with the OODA loop. Okay? So I want to thank all of you for listening to the MYFORD University podcast. If this has helped you, please share it with a decision maker in your life. Share it with someone who's stuck. Share it with someone who overthinks or someone who needs a system that works. Please don't keep us a secret. So until next time, remember, think fast, move smart, loop often. I want to thank you again. This is the MYFORD University podcast. I'm George Sloan, MYFORDuniversity.com, where you learn it fast, apply it faster. We will see you the next time. Thank you.